You're all sitting on a spaceship at this moment. Your planet is revolving at 1,000 miles an hour. It's travelling around the sun at many thousands of miles an hour. Altogether, you're travelling in 12 different directions at this moment at many, many thousands of miles an hour. And you're all sitting here as though there was nothing doing at all. And our friends from outer space are employing the same techniques that God employs in running the various planets in the universe.
I am a child, Mother Earth.
He was a beautiful, gentle man that probably looked like a sort of an anorexic Father Christmas.
We are children of Mother Earth. It makes our hearts rejoice.
With this amazing looking, I've never seen such an amazing looking man's face in my life.
Bird up in the tree. Your song, it sounds so clear. Good morning, sun.
And just really white hair and just a really beautiful soul, you know.
Is here. I am a child of Mother Earth.
It's pretty extraordinary that he maintained such a strong spiritual conviction about life.
It makes our hearts rejoice.
It should be understood initially that Fred was born in 1891, and so therefore he began to come into these understandings around the time of the Depression of 1929, 1930.
Good morning dew in droplets blue.
He was wanting everybody to aspire to a spiritual life. And anybody he met, generally, he'd turn around the conversation to that and trying to inspire them.
We are children of Mother Earth. It makes our hearts rejoice.
A couple of his things were a bit funny, I thought, with his flying saucer stories and things. And I thought, well, you know, it's a bit out there sort of thing, but you know, you don't really know whether he was, you know, I mean, he believed in it.
Fred was a man with a vision that wanted to try and create a heaven on earth in a community where people could live and work harmoniously, cooperatively together to create an environment for the children.
My friend, all the time you're sitting down may never end.
Fred Robinson from the Brotherhood of Man, the Universal Brotherhood.
The Universal Brotherhood.
And it is about 150 miles.
About 150 miles south of Perth, right into the beautiful country, which was the big timber country, very like California.
Yes.
A beautiful place for children.
So pack up your gear, my brother, and put on your sailing shoes. There's a life here like no other, and it's waiting here for you, and it's calling out to you. You don't need to bring your motor car, but if you like, you can bring the two. And all that you think that you're leaving behind, count your blessings to what you find. Count your blessings to what you find.
mean, you might say he was a bit eccentric, but he had a lot of courage. What he believed in wholeheartedly, and he would actually make the effort himself to put things into practice. Like he would go, even as an older man, he'd try and do some digging in the garden.
Well, into his 80s, we had a problem with variegated thistles on the property that we had the community on, this 300-acre property. And he decided that he'd go hoeing thistles.
I made him up a little adze, and he'd go up there and he'd knock these thistles, some of them growing maybe 6 or 7 or 8 foot high.
You know, after some weeks, there wasn't many thistles that he could find left, you know. And then one day he disappeared. He walked off down the road towards town with his little bag. And then a few days later he came back, and he'd been in Perth giving a lecture. And then he was out on the farm again. And this is, you know, this to me was the sort of person that Fred was. He could adapt and do anything.
Tell us your age.
Well, I was 87 last April.
Last April.
And I'm only endeavouring to share with anyone who is interested in the whole world the simple secret of health and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
That is really all that we're trying to do. It would be mean to keep this to ourselves and not try to share it.
We have to share it.
I met Fred within 2 weeks. I'd hired the Sydney Town Hall. I'd come into a small amount of, well, it was a large amount of money in those days, $500 back. My father had been putting, you know, 2 shillings a week into an insurance policy which came due on my 23rd birthday, and I blew the whole lot on hiring the Sydney Town Hall for Fred Robinson.
I heard about Fred through Stephen Carthew. I was in Adelaide at the time, and Stephen and his wife Louise were coming through Adelaide. I immediately fell in love with the concept, with the whole idea. It was just my cup of tea, so to speak, at that particular time of my life, and I think I was probably only about 19. Fresh out of school with a vision to change myself and the world and that kind of thing.
First trip to community, I went with Dave McAloney across the Nullarbor. He went there to stay in the community, decided to leave his job and pack up and go across there. And we went across the Nullarbor, probably January 76.
Toasting on the fire.
My first meeting with Fred was during one of our customary Fred talks. That was the first time that I met him.
He talked a lot about people trying to find and have what he called constant contact with the spirit within yourself. In other words, with your conscience. But more than that, more than just your own conscience, but a guidance in your life. And you can, you know, I think there are a lot of people that feel guided in their life, but don't necessarily use words like God, religion, but they know that they're driven to do something. Many people do that. I mean, even a little film like this, what makes a person decide to choose to make a film about Fred Robinson? Sometimes it's a knowing that that's what I've got to do. And I think Fred, that's really what Fred's, you really boil it down, what Fred was after was that people do what they really felt called to do, rather than to be hoodwinked by the multinationals. He often used that term, they're being hoodwinked by the multinationals, and people would come along to one of his talks, and then you'd see them having a smoke afterwards, and he'd go, poor fella, multinationals have got him. It was sort of interesting.
And a great sigh of relief and a laugh went up, another false prophet. I don't know how many times I've been called a false prophet and a prophet of doom and all sorts of gloomy things. Do I look very gloomy?
He was probably more of a sort of a prophet archetype than a patriarch. He didn't really have a big influence in the running or in the organisation of the community. That was probably more towards in Mary's area or in Seneca's area, but he was more an inspired sort of prophet person who would be seeking to lead people and inspire people.
I think Mary, his wife, was the main grounding of them. I think without her, he would have just flitted and not had a brotherhood or a group to pull his ideas out. She sort of grounded his ideas.
Yeah, she was the matriarch. She was the centerpin who basically ruled the roost and dictated I think the life of Fred to a great degree, and certainly the activities within and the politics within the community.
I had a lot of things I didn't feel were what I would like to have happen in a community. I was upset with the way sometimes Fred was treated by some of the community members and sometimes by his wife, because it was uncomfortable what he would be coming out with, and he'd be trying to inspire everybody to live to the highest light, and that's jolly hard to do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, after year after year after year.
No ignorance, no darkness, no fears, no worries, no doubts, none of those things. There's no place for feelings like that when you're making your own Garden of Eden, when you're making your own heaven upon earth for the children. No, the days are one long joyous ecstasy of creative effort.
I think that having said a lot of the positive and virtue things about Fred, I think he was potentially a very dangerous man, because he had the power, the eloquence, the charisma to manipulate and control people and convince people and mislead people.
Nowhere in any university in the world will you find the Urantia book, and it should be in every university there is.
Yeah, I can really appreciate that, because I'm going back to Adelaide soon and I'm sort of regretting being placed in the position of getting up and there's the television going, the radio going and the newspapers there. It's completely detached from anything that's going on here and anything that's of any relevant importance. It's just unimportant, and it's very, very misleading. It's misled everyone.
It's done deliberately, David. It isn't an accident. It isn't by chance that the truth is bound. One of the first things Krishnamurti ever said when he started 50 odd years ago, truth is the enemy of society. This society is based upon lies and deceit. The whole structure, the withholding of truth.
Fred moved into his own prophetic agenda, which was to make it quite clear that we were in a lot of trouble. The world was in a lot of trouble. We were personally in a lot of trouble, and we had to change. And the way to change was by And there was a fair amount of fear. There was a lot of fear that was being generated.
Some of the members have been only perhaps a few days or a few weeks in the community, and they're not yet quite shed of all their preconceived ideas, and they're still clinging to human opinions, and this opinion clashes with that opinion, and it takes a little time for some of them to shed all human opinions.
I think we all cope by doing our best to conform to what they call the group consciousness, which was just a kind of a sort of a new age way of defining the tribe or the mob.
I think for a lot of people they were just so busy trying to actually reclaim themselves, and I found afterwards, after I left, that it took quite a while to work out when something would come up, what I actually thought about it, as opposed to what I had taken on as a community response to things.
If Fred hadn't taken advantage of our vulnerability, I tell you, someone else would have, you know.
We didn't kill anybody. We didn't mean to do anything bad. But I don't think, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who feel as though they were hurt quite badly by the lack of personal relationship skills of people in leadership positions in the community, very much including myself, and the Mary Robinson.
Fred was a lovely man, very supportive from time to time, but as with all of us, he had a shadow, and it was very, very difficult for us to distinguish what that shadow was and what our own shadow was. But living in the community was a shadow, unconscious, type of an unconscious experience. And that's why we were vulnerable. We were somewhat naive, but we learnt, and by God's grace, we managed to end up where we are today.
I am Fred Robinson, the only Fred Robinson in the whole universe. I didn't wake up till the other night. They couldn't possibly stand two of him. But nevertheless, it's true. You're all unique beings.
You might need two of you, Fred.
Oh,
we might
no.
need two of you.
No, it takes most people all the time to put up with one.
Well, I think Fred and Mary and the whole vision attracted a lot of light bearers, what I call light bearers, sons and daughters of God, very beautiful souls, very wonderful individuals. And we came and we all united. We were magnetized to this vision, to this Christic vision.
And Fred's message was very universal. It crossed over all spiritual domains and dimensions, and I think that was the wonderful thing, that Fred could meet a person where they were.
He was really connected to some higher force. He was really an incredible being, and just had a very big heart. And
I'd say Fred was a catalyst. He brought about huge change in people by listening to him and really tuning into the dedication to doing God's will, however one saw that. You knew you were talking to somebody that had lived a life and made maybe lots of mistakes, but he had something to share.
I just think he was a delightfully sincere old man who had a really strong vision. And I was thinking about it this morning and wondering who Fred was before we knew him, because we only ever knew him as an old man. It's easy to say, oh, he's cute, isn't he, a cute old man? But who was he when he was a teenager, and who was he as a young man, and who was he as a husband and father, you know, with all these kids? Who was he during the Depression? You know, his whole thing about bartering and honey, and that whole thing that we read in the Earth Garden magazine all those years ago, all the stories that we heard.
And I would think that Fred Robinson would be a person who is added to a part of my own fabric of who I am as well. And so I wish him well wherever he is at the moment, and I'm sure that he's looking down. I can remember his smile and his great grin and warm eyes whenever he's pleased and whenever he's happy, and I can feel his presence even now, just radiating joy of the fact that I'm still alive, I'm doing well, and many of us are, and that he has known that he's been appreciated and loved by many people.
All through the sounds of love we weave, songs of inspired harmonies, awakening visions of our destiny, forever changing and eternally free. There's a call for me. There's a song from beyond, and it's drawing near, awakening all who hear. This change is coming, and I know it's something beyond all to perceive. All we can do is be open to this new flow, and we shall surely come to know that a new life is calling. As the old world is falling, we have the choice of the two. We've got to find a place of peace. We've got to strive for what we want, and in time we'll learn just